Hello, this is Ben from Drunken Buddha, and today I'm going to be talking about why the body is the key to addiction recovery. So, let me just get straight in there. The reason why the body is so key is that what is actually driving your addiction, the actual root cause of it, is in the body, right? It's that's where it sort of lives. And what is it that's driving addiction? The best word we have for it that sort of covers sort of umbrella term is trauma, which I like to define very broadly as sort of any unresolved or undigested emotional experience we have in life. So we might go through our lives, and just as one small example, imagine we get really angry as a kid all of a sudden, because kids are very uninhibited, right? So if something happens, you get someone takes away your toy, you get really angry. But then if your parent doesn't like it, shuts you down, don't be angry. The kid has no choice. The kid can't risk losing its parents' love. It pushes down the anger. So we can have all sorts of emotional and survival responses in life: anger, fear, sadness, wanting to run away, um, wanting to numb out or dissociate. And if we don't have the capacity, or we're not allowed to express that, to process that, we don't have the support we need to do so, we have to push it down. And when we push it down, these emotions and survival responses, they don't just disappear. This is what everybody thinks, when when you stop feeling a particular emotion, well, it must have just disappeared into the ether. That's not what happens. When we don't aren't able to fully meet these emotions and survival responses, and we have to push them down, although they might disappear from our experience, they haven't disappeared entirely. They're actually stored in the muscles, in the fascia, even in the different organs of your body. And over time, you sort of accumulate this sort of big pile of all this undigested emotional experience. And we don't even notice this because we become so used to it, right? It's like all this stuff in our body, all these repressed emotions and responses. It's just like sort of like an air conditioner of doom just running in the background, right? It's just this background hum of suffering that we don't even know is there because we're so used to it. Yet it's absolutely dominating our life. It dictates what our felt sense of experience is. It dictates what it is to be me, right? So some people might have a felt sense of life that's really, really anxious and tight and restricted. Others might have one that's is full of repressed anger, very sharp, explosive. You go between sort of numbness and then sudden fits of rage. Others might be very depressed and shut down, right? Or some combination of these. And this is all due to all these different experiences which we haven't been able to process. And it's all in the body. So these survival responses, they're before the mind. Some of these survival responses, they go back hundreds of million years to when we weren't even humans. They have their roots in absolutely ancient parts of our brain and our nervous system, because the brain doesn't exist by itself. It's part of a whole network of nerves. The brain doesn't really just exist up here. It exists throughout your entire body, right? And it's this stuff. It's before the mind, and there's nothing you can say or express only with words that will actually make any of this stuff move anywhere. Right? So there's no words you can find. There's nothing someone can say to you that will make a huge mountain of repressed anger just disappear from your system. And what's the link between this and addiction? Well, it turns out that having all these repressed emotions and sort of stuck survival responses, stuck survival energy in the body is very, very unpleasant. You've got tons of unconscious tension and sadness and all sorts of different emotions in the body. In fact, the best way of explaining it would be that your body is almost echoing how it felt in the past, in the present moment. So when you felt unsafe in the past and you weren't able to process that, you will then continue to feel unsafe on some level in the present moment. And so our body essentially feels unsafe on various different levels in the present moment, regardless of the content of the present moment, right? So you can just be sitting in your room by yourself and still feeling very uneasy, and this is why, right? And addiction or cravings and compulsions of any kind are the body's attempt as a solution to this problem. So the body thinks it has to hang on to all these survival responses because it feels like it doesn't have the capacity to work through them. So it feels it has to hang on to all of them. But at the same time, it's this that's so intense, it's so painful that it needs some additional help from outside through alcohol, drugs, people pleasing, gambling, sex, success, workaholism, perfectionism, being right, you name it. These are all ways of coping with this pain in the body that we're trying to escape from, that is this echo from the past of these different survival responses. That is why the body is so key, because if you don't address these drivers in the body, you actually can't transform them in any way. So you might be able to do some helpful things in your life to cope with these drivers in the body. So you can eat more healthily. Perhaps you can go to the gym. You can go to 12-step meetings, or get a therapist, or talk to your friends really openly about it, or whatever. And that's all great. That's all super helpful. But it's sort of nibbling at the edges of the cosmic biscuit of addictive suffering, and will only ever be a coping mechanism. And now coping mechanisms are fantastic, wonderful, but the real juice, like the real freedom and the real joy of recovery, is in transforming these emotional wounds and these stuck survival responses into finding them, hearing them, seeing these abandoned parts of yourself, and letting them transform into something more positive, so that you're not going through life in a sort of a frozen survival state. You're actually much more open, much more connected, much more intimate with life and other people, right? Because these parts of you that are stuck and frozen are creating a kind of a block between you and life and other people, and you and yourself, in fact, really. And in my own experience, I've sort of been through this process. I used to be addicted to alcohol. And then I sort of in a long story short, hit rock bottom, stopped drinking, but then I was still, my addiction just transferred to other substances. So instead of drinking alcohol, I just drank coffee. I binged chocolate every day, tons of YouTube and tons of anxiety. Like, there's so much anxiety, it was crazy. It was coming up in the body. And I was like, I can't live like this either. This is better. This is an improvement on drinking, but I cannot live like this. So I tried different things, and eventually stumbled on the somatic work, and then started working through these different layers of what I was explaining a little earlier. So there's the numbness and dissociation at the top, the feeling so disconnected from life, working through that. Then there was so much sadness and hurt. Then there was, the main thing for me was tons of repressed anger. Like I'd just been taught, never to express your emotions. Don't bother anyone. Don't get it. Don't get into a conflict with anyone. Repressed, you don't have permission to just live your own life as you want, that kind of thing. So much rage and frustration at all of that was built into my body, and it took hours and tons and tons of time and effort to really let that come up and let it be felt. Just really feeling the rage through the body, and just allowing myself to feel these parts of myself that I had been repressing. And you'd be fucking amazed, you'd be astonished at what is down there in the body. This is what's most incredible. There's so many different emotions, so many different beliefs, so many different stuck patterns of energy. It's once you start going into it, it's like, it makes perfect sense that you would drink or do whatever else you might do to deal with that. It's like, how the hell else would you do it? Like, the amount of rage that was in my system. It's like, no wonder you'd have a drink. Christ. It's like, of course. That's a very compassionate thing to do for myself, in fact, in a certain way, because there's just so much tension that I was just unaware of, and I drink and it just goes, whew. But then once you start to bring it up, it was like all these fires were going out in my body. I could just, each time I would have a big session or do some work on it, and really sort of connected with something and allowed it to integrate and process. Then there was this calm where there used to be agitation. And then over time, the addictions and the compulsions and the cravings just tend to fall away by themselves, because they only exist to try and medicate that issue in the body. So if you move towards that, then there's no real reason anymore to drink tons of drink a liter of coffee or so much chocolate that you can't can't sleep or whatever. And it's just a very eye-opening experience as to what is actually going on here. And now, how do you actually do that? That's I've got other videos that talk about that. I think I'll slowly start wrapping this one up. I also have a free toolkit that's got lots of emotional regulation, emotional sobriety ideas. It's got about 115 techniques and skills, and you'll definitely be able to find some cool ideas there. Or I do work one-on-one with people, doing sort of somatic, I call it somatic inquiry, sort of somatic embodied processing work, to help people sort of process some of these drivers. So, and just in terms of general recommendations of what you could do more widely, like the first step will be to start getting in touch with your body. So really start increasing your body awareness, attuning to what's actually going on there. So things like yoga or Pilates are super helpful, just any kind of mindful movement activities. Mindfulness meditation can be good, though I'd be a little careful there, because sometimes if you've got a lot of trauma in the system, just sitting down to meditate and being quiet can feel unsafe or threatening to the body. So I would maybe look up trauma-informed meditation or trauma-informed mindfulness. There's some cool stuff there. You could do like walking meditation, for example, just walking up and down your garden or through the woods, but it's very quietly and mindfully, but then you've still got some movement. Or some body scanning meditation. There are tons of like guided ones online that can be quite good. Then various somatic therapies are what really address the root or the core of the issue. There are tons of those out there. I have, I'm qualified, certified in a few, and I'm pretty fond of them. Living inquiries, the killer bee inquiries, and embodied processing. But there are many more as well that are cool. So yeah, I hope you found that useful. Again, the body is the key. If you want to really transform some of those core wounds that are driving the addiction, because that's where the deepest freedom from addiction really lies, which has huge ramifications for everything else in your life as well. When you start feeling more connected to yourself and to life and to other people, and you want running your life from these survival responses. Cool. So check out the other videos on my channel or my website, drunkenbuddha.net. Some more resources there. Peace out.